So this morning we continue our study of the book of Genesis, a story of human failure and God's faithfulness. As Reverend John Holbert writes, Genesis 1 through 11 is nothing less than a history of the failures of the people of Yahweh to do things that their God had called them to do. From fruit eating to fratricide, to divine human inappropriate intermingling, to the great flood, to the family-destroying drunkenness of Noah, to the ridiculous mud brick tower designed clearly to make a name for themselves, and to avoid scattering abroad on the face of the land, expressly rejecting Yahweh's clear call to be fruitful, multiply, and fill the earth. Genesis 11 ends with uncommunicative people rushing away from the ruins of their attempts to reach up to Yahweh. They had finally scattered abroad, but hardly in the ways Yahweh had in mind. Plainly, something else, something new, must be done. So God decides to try something new. Meet Abram, whom we will later know as Abraham, Father Abraham, progenitor of the nation of Israel, God's chosen people, as well as of Christians and Muslims. We don't know a lot about this man at this point. We don't know why he is the one God chose to carry out the divine plan B. It seems that rather than continuing to speak with the mass of humanity and watching them fail to do the Holy One's will, God has decided that perhaps one person can be the instrument of divine will. We're not told if Abram is a God-fearing man, if he's more faithful than others, if he's the only one around who will listen to God at this point. We only know that God calls on Abram to do what God needs doing. Chapter 12 of Genesis is a shift in the focus of the Bible. Chapters 1 through 11 tell us about the beginnings of humanity. Chapter 12 begins the story of God's people, the Hebrews, Israel as they are called, the Jews. But a brief look at Abram's family tree shows us where he came from and how he fits in. You'll recall that Noah had 3 sons, one named Shem. Among his descendants is a man named Terah, who is the father of Abram, Haran, and Nahor. Haran had a son named Lot, but Haran died young. As humans continued to scatter over the earth, Terah took his son Abram and his grandson Lot, son of Haran, and his daughter-in-law Sarai, who is barren, we're told, and they went out together from Ur of the Chaldeans to go into the land of Canaan. But when they came to Haran, they settled there. Genesis 11:31. So God approaches Abram, who is living in Haran, and makes him some really big promises. God asks him to leave behind his country, his family, his home, and go somewhere that God will lead him. God doesn't tell him where that might be or how far away it is. God asks him simply to trust and obey. And if he will, God will bless him. I will show you the land. I will make you a great nation. I will bless you. I will make great your name. I will bless those you bless. I will curse the one who curses you. This is a story of human obedience and divine promise. In response to Abram's obedience, God will make him a benefactor of the world. He will give to the world blessings untold. We need to be clear. God does not choose Abram and his family simply to abandon everyone else. They will be the source of blessing to many, many others. Dennis Olson writes, God's people are not to turn inward, to worry only about their own survival, to consider themselves as God's only concern, or to ignore the wider community in which they live. Abram will reap gains from this act of faith, but more importantly, humanity will be blessed through him. So Abram says yes. Sometimes we forget how difficult a decision that must have been. Yes, he's being promised land, and God will end his childlessness despite the facts that his wife is barren and they are both well beyond childbearing age. These must have seemed like promises too good to be true. Would God really cause that to happen? Would it be worth it to leave all that he knows behind? Could he relinquish all his comforts and securities? Would he really follow God on a journey without a map? Go with closed eyes? Do the promises outweigh the sacrifice? Somehow through faith, Abram is able to put aside typical human fears. Can he step out in ignorance of what lies ahead, move past his fear of the unknown? Can he give up our all too human need to have a place to belong, to be included, and set out to be a stranger, a foreigner in a distant land, not even knowing which distant land that will be? Can he deal with his feelings of impotence, not knowing what he faces, and if he has the strength, skills, knowledge needed to deal with whatever might come along? It seems that Abram's trust in God is so strong that he is able to make this counterintuitive choice and believe that God knows that God will be with him, that God will fight his battles for him. Now we know the journey will prove to be one with many ups and downs, joys and sorrows. And best of all, God will be with him each step of the way. How else do we step out in faith, not knowing, simply trusting? God calls us too to make that same choice again and again and again. Will you teach an adult Sunday school class? Gee, I don't know. I've never done that. What if people find me lacking or make fun of my lame skills? Will you take on that leadership position in the church? Well, I'm not much of a leader. What if people won't follow me? Will you speak of your relationship with Christ to others? I don't want a reputation like that. Will you? Would you? Can you? Trust me? Follow me? Journey with me? I'm not sure I want to go there. Abram goes. Will we? Dennis Brackner writes, God's chosen people never exist in isolation. They are called to a wider mission than just self-preservation. They are never allowed to claim an exclusive hold on God's concern. God remains committed to all creation and all humanity. As a congregation, God may be calling us to go places we haven't even considered, to do things we've never thought about. We don't know the blessings that await us, but we know that we are called to be a blessing to others. And it's not all about us. As the story plays out, we will see that God blesses Abram in ways he could have never dreamed. I believe that God is ready to do the same for us as individuals and as a congregation. Do we love God more than country, family, home? Can we step out into the unknown and trust God to be there? I believe blessing awaits. This is a story of Father Abraham and his very loving God. Again, it's a story of God's divine promise and human obedience. It's a story of trust and faith. It's a story of blessings, utter gift, absolute grace, total generosity. Is it our story? Will we let it be? Thanks be to God. Amen.